You're watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and I feel very lucky and very blessed to share this very beautiful, strong woman with you. Strong is a mild adjective. After you've heard her story, you will understand why I'm saying it's mild. Her name is Tova Friedman, and she is a survivor in so many ways, and a woman I would love to emulate. And I think a lot of women should, because she gives definition to strength. No, Tova, thank you so much for taking the time today to share your story with me and my viewers.
Okay.
I would like to begin by telling my viewers you are one of the youngest Holocaust survivors and probably one of the few left. And that is why I feel so privileged to have this opportunity to spend this time with you, especially considering what is happening in the world right now. So, would you tell us, you at 1 year old, Poland was invaded, and I'd like you to take it from there.
First, let me tell you, one of the reasons that I tell my story is that, well, really two reasons. One of it is that 6 million Jews were killed, more other people too, but I'm concentrating on the Jews. That's what we call the Holocaust Shoah. Shoah is the Jewish part of the genocide. Although there were like a total of 12 million people killed, Gypsies, Romas, and other people, and 1.5 million of children were murdered. They were gassed. They were starved. They were shot. Some of them were drowned, just like that, for no reason except that they were Jewish. And when I think back of all those children that aren't here with us anymore, the world could have been a completely different place. If you have 1.5 million talents, scientists, doctors, artists, but they're all gone. And I feel that I'm here only through luck. I wasn't richer, I wasn't more clever or anything. I was just lucky in many ways. And I just like to not to forget them. So every time I talk about the Holocaust, the Shoah, I remember them. And then maybe in some small, tiny way, I can contribute to people who maybe will stop, what we can help prevent another genocide. And now we have a war in Ukraine, which is absolutely a terrible thing, but there is a difference. And I want to tell you the difference, if I may.
Yes, please.
Yes, the difference is that the Ukrainian, more power to them, are fighting back. They had tanks. They get a lot of ammunition from us, billions, millions of dollars. The world knows about it, and they get not only financial help, hopefully, but also psychological, because we are all against it, right? These demonstrations, of course.
Yes.
And there are many people who are helping them. Poland is taking them in, Germany, England. I heard some people coming to America. With us, it was completely different. It was done, first of all, in silence. We did not know what is happening in the next town. That's one of the psychological ways that, that Hitler got us. So the world didn't know. Nobody would believe it. We were not a country. We had no government. We had no one to protect us. We were individuals living in groups in different countries in Europe. And we were like shocked because it happened very quickly and silently.
Mhm.
And it was a genocide. It was a slaughter. It wasn't a war. So that's the difference. But I see the little children that reminds me of myself, or when I see them on television. There was no way for anybody to know what was happening to me. My mother had 150 family members. They were very large families,
Right.
9 brothers and sisters and their children. Not one person survived. Not one, except my mother. Not one. Okay. My father had, comes from a family of 8. 4 survived. He and 3 of his sisters, and one of them was killed after the war with anti-Semitic in Poland.
Right.
So you can see it was a complete type of a difference. In my town, there were thousands of kids. They were brought children from different Jewish groups, different when they made the ghetto. You know what a ghetto is, right?
Yes.
They brought Jews from other cities into the same ghetto. There were thousands of children. At the end of the war, 5 survived who were born in my town, Tomashow-mazowiechi. So you can imagine.
I have watched a lot of your material, and I look at you, and looking at you, it would not be obvious to anybody what you have gone through.
It is, what do you do with it? That's what's important. You know, I'm also a therapist. I don't let people pretend that they weren't raped or there was no incest or their parents aren't divorced. No. It's part of life. It's what happens to some. It's part of the history.
Right.
The Holocaust, the Shoah, is my history. The question is, what do I do with that history? I can deny it, which is not going to do me any good. Then it's not fair to those who've been killed. I'm denying their existence, right? If I say, oh, it really didn't happen, it wasn't bad, then I'm denying their torture. Or I can live in such a way that I'm suffering. Then Hitler would have won. He wants me to suffer. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
But because I am not only a survivor, but I call it a thriver. I'm sure other people use the same word. I feel that I have to take all that and do something with it. I mean, you know, I survived. Many of us who survived really survived through certain type of luck or being in the right place at the right time. I can give you one instance after the other. It's almost like a miracle. But the other people who died, who were killed, were no lesser than I was. We have to honor them.
Right.
They were people who were writers, painters. I don't know if you've been to Israel.
No.
There was a big museum, Yad Vashem. That's the Jewish Holocaust Museum, or in Washington, D.C. And you will see some of the art that they did, some of the books that they wrote, some of the music, and the children with all the potentials. No, I survived. I must say, I think it was an accident with a little luck, and I can go with you step by step, because I have a fabulous memory, because my mother talked to me all the time. That's one good thing I must tell you. She never tried to protect me. She thought she would protect me by telling me the truth.
Right.
That was her parenting philosophy. That's why I remember so much.
And you said you were captive, you remembered being in the camps from the age 5, is that correct?
Right. And well, no, I was in the camps all the time. Uh,
Oh, okay,
I was in different camps. You see,
right,
the way it worked, you were first in a ghetto. So we were in a tiny room, well, maybe 2 bedrooms with about 30 people. I don't know the numbers right now, but we and we were all concentrated, and that's this began the annihilation of the people. How did it begin? Starvation. They knew. You see, you have to understand something. Can I call you by your first name?
yes, Jenny,
What is it?
Jennylyn or Jenny?
Jenny. Oh, Jenny's easy for me. Okay.
Yes, okay,
Yeah. You see, this war was planned by very, very good, very sharp people, very smart people. Smart. You know, Hitler had geniuses around him.
wow,
Yeah, because look, they could figure out how long it took a person to die from starvation. So let's say you've got 1,000 people and you need you only want 500 left. So you have no room for more than 500. You just stopped giving them food. You knew exactly how long they knew how long it would take for a person to die without food. So they had to use nutritionists. I don't know, you don't know, a nutritionist would know. Do you know what I'm saying?
yes, of course,
At each step, there were intellectuals. That's why it's such a scary phenomenon. There were intellectuals who worked out the final solution, which is the plan to get an entire people off the face of the earth, at least in Europe.
unbelievable.
They should not be there. Why? I don't know. I looked more like an Aryan than Hitler did. I had blue eyes. I have blue eyes. This is not real, right? But I had very light hair and he was dark. And so what I'm telling you, he didn't like all the colors, or because we were mostly dark in our religion. So it was the plan how to do it. The first thing he did, he got rid of all the elderly. So my grandparents died first because elderly look, they don't fight. They can't help him in the war effort. They can't work in factories. I mean, they can, but they're older and so forth. They cost money and they need medication if you want to keep them alive. Why bother? They're useless. Kill them. And also, they are the fabric of the family. You know, a family that has grandparents and sometimes they live together. I'm a grandmother. I have 8 grandchildren and I know that I'm important. I know that I cook for them. They can call me and say, I am part of their structure.
Right.
So they have to get rid of the family. By the way, you destroy a family and you destroy people. You can't destroy a people without destroying family.
Right.
So they killed all of our elderly people. And then they went to the children. What are the children worth? First of all, again, they need to eat. And they also get sick. And then the parents have to take care of them and they can't go to the factory and work. Right? And another thing, he was scared. Since he wanted no witnesses, right? The kids may become witnesses like me. I wasn't supposed to be here to be a witness. I was supposed to be a guest. So I'm not here to tell you the story and all the people that are listening to this program, because they wouldn't know anything about it if I didn't tell you the story. We didn't have television. We didn't have any media. The newspapers weren't allowed. Even a letter wasn't allowed to leave. If they found that you're writing a letter to somebody, they would kill you.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's the whole thing. When I look back, it's just unbelievable. So those that are left and are witnesses have the responsibility to tell the story. Who else will do it? And I'm always afraid that after I'm gone, there won't be too many people left, since I'm one of the youngest. Okay.
So you have the first-hand experience, you and those who survived. So we're grateful because if no one had survived, this would just go unnoticed.
Exactly right. And do you know, and I'm always afraid, and I'm sure that you heard about it, the deniers.
Yes.
Never happened. You know, they just want to be sorry. Stupid stories. What kind of it? There's no, they're everywhere in colleges, in intellectual groups. So I am here. I don't even talk to them, but I'm here to talk to the rest of the world who wants to listen. To not even just turn away from the deniers. Don't engage them in any conversation.
Right.
Okay.
And I've watched so many of your videos and you're very detailed. And it's
Yes.
clear that you have an amazing memory.
Well, my mother was with me. That's the thing. She would tell me. So let me give you a few little things that I think to show you that it just happened. That's all. In the ghetto, we were all stuck in this. And they came and they got my grandmother, and I was under the table, and they didn't see me. And there was an accident. Another little girl, a friend's sister, my age, she was visible, not the same place, in a different place in the ghetto. So they took her and they shot her. Oh, so it just, yeah, I know it's okay. And then let's go to the next place, the ghetto closed. They must have killed 6,000 to 7,000 people at least. And many of them went on those trains to Treblinka. Have you heard of Treblinka?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay. Well, you know, Auschwitz is only one camp, one extermination camp. There were 6. Not quote me, there were concentration camps, which means people were all together and they were shot there and they were starved. But the extermination camp had gas chambers. Do you know how clever they were? Do you know they knew how long it takes for a person to die in a gas chamber? And they figured it was 6 minutes. You put the gas on, depends how many people were in the room, right?
Oh.
You seem surprised. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm just, as you're speaking, I'm just thinking of how human life didn't seem to matter to them at all.
You know, it wasn't a human life. That's what I'm trying to tell you. We were nothing. We weren't human. We were like mice. We were like germs or something. This is why they gave us numbers. They took away our names, right? Once you have a name, you're a person, right? The baby is born. People think about what to give the name for months ahead of time. They read books, and because you associate your name with your life.
Right.
Are you named after a family member? Are you named for a tree that your mom loved? Are you named for some kind of something? It's a meaningful. That'll be you. Every time somebody talks about Jenny on TV, they'll know, oh, I know that woman.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
they took away our names, and first they put numbers on our clothing, right? And of course, they identified us wearing bands. But later on, they tattooed our skin like cattle. So my name was 27,633.
My God.
I didn't even know. I couldn't even read or write. I didn't know what a number was. I was 5.5 when they tattooed me. You know, when you are already like in a certain, they take away your hair. So just picture yourself. You have no hair, which is an identity of most, especially women. But you know,
Yes.
you have no name, no hair, no clothing, because they took away your clothes and put something else on. Who are you? That's how they can easily kill you like that. You look at somebody like that and they don't have any emotional attachment. So they can shoot you and kill you and gas you. They were smart. They dehumanized you.
My goodness.
And then you say, and then how can you fight? If let's say not my mother, but let's say somebody like my mother, who was, let's see, 32, 33 years old, saw her children being shot, saw her parents my mother saw her mother being shot. My father saw them just about being killed. He put them on a truck and he knew where they were going. So you see your mother, your parents being killed, you see your children being killed, and your husband is somewhere. Why do you want to, what do you need to live? They took away our will to live. And that's how they can get us.
I wanted to ask you this question, and I mean no disrespect by any of the questions I ask you, but I'm just curious. Did you ever encounter a German who you felt had a bit of a heart for you people?
No, not
one,
no.
not one.
First of all, I was a child. I didn't relate. I was too frightened to even look at them.
Right.
My mother said, don't have any eye contact. The only person that I remember was a Jewish person who tattooed me. And when she was tattooing me, I was watching. I was always a curious child, I guess, and it couldn't have hurt very much, or it was bearable, because otherwise I wouldn't be watching, you know. I don't remember the pain. Pain in general is hard to remember, but I remember her hand shaking. She was so nervous. She didn't want to do it. She had to tattoo about 50 children, all little ones. We were all waiting on line. So I remember her, and she must have been 18, 19. She was Jewish. They used us to kill us. They didn't do it themselves. They had us, not me, but my parents, dig trenches, like graves. And the people who dug the graves knew the grave is either for their children or for their parents.
Oh my God. That is so heinous, all of it. Now, you were 5 years old, and I would encourage my viewers to watch a lot of your interviews, because I watched probably all of them.
By the way, my grandson put me on TikTok. I don't know if you know.
Okay, so I want my viewers to know you can also find her on TikTok, but right. I'd really encourage everyone to watch this story, because there is so much. You gave very detailed descriptions of what happened throughout your captivity, but I wanted you to share with us how you escaped, you and your mother.
What?
How you escaped, how you managed to stay alive.
That's how I escaped.
How you were captured. The Russians came and saved
but that's the end of the story. That's
right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I want you to share the bits and the pieces that you want people to know, so they can get the story of how the suffering.
Okay, well, I have other stories also.
Okay.
I have a lot of stories.
Just share whatever you feel inclined to share.
Okay.
With us.
Well, before Auschwitz, we were in a labor camp, which means most of the people were physical, because all the others were killed, and some children, because my mother and father worked in a factory. You know, they worked in ammunition factory, and they had these selections every so often. You never knew how they decided which group was going to be killed or transported somewhere to be killed. And then one day my father heard that the children, there weren't too many children left. So he hid me in like a crawl space.
Yes.
Now that's luck. He happened to have a crawl space in a place where we slept. If we didn't have a crawl space there, or if he wouldn't have been aware of it, I would have not been able to escape. But he hid me there, and I saw the other children, those that didn't have crawl spaces, would put on a truck, and we never saw them again. We knew. Anyhow, but then when we went to the, so then I couldn't be on the street anymore. They shouldn't see me. So I was I call it the dark room for quite a while. But I felt safe. See, that's the thing. When my parents said to me, "You are safe," I knew I was safe.
Right.
And then we went, and then what they did, they got rid of that camp. They used to move people from camp to camp, from camp to camp. So you should make no relationships. I once met a woman at a conference who let go of her mother's hand when she was 3. Of two. She had no idea her name, who she was, not her name, not her age. And she said she was in 50 camps. And I remember that she sat like on a bench at this conference in Washington, D.C. with a big sign, "Do you know me?" She had no identity. She didn't know who she was. And there was nobody to find. Everybody got lost. Everybody got killed. She went from one orphanage to another orphanage without paperwork. They didn't know who she was. So here she was. She must have been 65. And I remember I looked at it. I said, "You don't know who you are." She says, "No. And I just want to know just before I die who I am." And just like that, she was sitting with this thing. So it was so many atrocities. Every person who will talk to you that will have a different story. But anyhow, I survived that selection in the labor camp, and we came to Auschwitz. We arrived on a Sunday. Now, I didn't know that, by the way. I found it from a professor who came to Rutgers University, which is a college very close to my house. And he wrote a book about the transport. And he said, the reason that most of the people on the transport were not killed right away as they arrived was because first they were healthy, because we came from a labor camp. That means that we survived a lot of selections, and those were healthy workers, number one. Number two, because it was on a Sunday, and the Germans had 4 gas chambers going, and they didn't want a 5th, and that's how I survived. What if I've come in on a Monday or a Tuesday?
My God.
They would have another gas chamber. But the Germans had a type of Christian religion, which to this day, I don't know what it is. Couldn't have been the regular Christian religion. I mean, because they couldn't do things like that. They had their own Bible. I have no idea what they believed in, but they did believe that Sunday was a day of rest. So they didn't want to work so hard. So I made it. I mean, and then they took my hair away, they shaved me, gave me some clothes, and I went with my mother because they had no children. I thought I was the only child, but later on I found out there were a lot of children there later on. And my mother kept giving me her food. Well, what if I didn't have a mother who would give me food? She gave me her ration and my ration, and we were starving. We were and she taught me how to behave. She gave me, etiquette. You can't go to the bathroom because you want to go. You have to hold it in. You have to do this. You have to hold that. And I learned.
But you were only 5 years old.
No, but I'm not the same 5 as I don't know if you have children.
Right.
When my kids were 5 or my grandchildren were 5, there's no connection. There is no, they're not the same children. And the children that are now going to be in Ukraine are not the same 5-year-old that you see here in kindergarten. They see things, they learn things. I remember when I was in Israel, I lived there 10 years. My kids were little, 5, 6, 7. They could recognize every plane. and they knew it was an enemy plane or a friendly plane. They knew. They'd look up and they say, oh, which American child knows that or wants to know? They're lucky they don't have to. I didn't know the planes. My kids knew the planes. Your background is different. You're a different person. I have some friends who were in the forest, and they tell me that a 6-year-old girl would try to fight some German soldiers, and she would dance with them. She was very pretty. She said she is Polish. She said, of course, she didn't say she was Jewish. And they gave her some bread for her dancing. And she would go back to find her parents in deeper into the forest, and she fed them. She did it for 2 or 3 months to keep them alive. A 6-year-old girl, because she knew that that piece of bread they gave her would feed her sister and her 2 parents. She had a little sister. I happen to know the woman myself. She's about 92 now.
My God.
No, it's a different kind of a world.
Yes.
So, and also in Auschwitz, I had scarlet fever. That my mother told me. I didn't know about diseases, right? And diphtheria. Now you need penicillin for that.
Mhm.
Here in America, if anybody gets it, they go to the hospital. They have penicillin. They I don't know what they had. I had nothing, and I survived. They isolated me because they were afraid of epidemics. The Germans were very afraid of epidemics because they would spread to them. They had hundreds of people of their own. It was run by like an army camp. You know, there were soldiers everywhere. So I survived that, okay? Then when I came to that took me away from my mother. And I stayed with the other children. Now I saw that they were children. And then they, towards the end, they already wanted to get rid of all the children, and they took me to a gas chamber, and they told us to go back. Now, I don't know what happened during that gas chamber.
Wow, you were definitely supposed to live. It's
Right.
clear.
Right. Right, I guess so.
And I know I've heard of stories of people not as severe situations as yours, but they may have been in a boat accident and everyone died and they lived. And they
Right.
talk about the guilt they feel because everyone else died and they survive.
You know, it's a funny thing. I don't feel guilt. I don't know why. I think but I feel a terrific obligation to keep those people alive. In fact, I feel, what would happen if I had died also? Then you wouldn't be able to interview me. And all the people who are listening to your program would know about it. So I feel an obligation.
Yeah, because one thing I heard when I listened to you is they covered their tracks. They didn't want any evidence left to show what they were doing. So we're talking to people like you, we would know nothing about this.
Exactly right. They cover their tracks. The motto was, leave no witnesses. That was Hitler's motto. Kill them all, leave no witnesses, and deny. You know?
What do you think he was afraid of?
What do you mean what he was afraid of?
I just wanted to know from you, what would you think he was, the rest of the world?
Of course. I mean, you know, you can't do, he was a mentally sick person, but
Right.
he didn't want any retribution.
Mhm.
That's why he killed himself, or they say he killed himself. I mean, you can't just do things like that without somebody saying, hey, what are you doing? I mean, but it's very hard to know his psychology. But you know, there was a camp called Theresienstadt. Did you ever hear of it?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Oh yeah, and you know, it was like a no, people were very. It was for artists and so forth, so they were treated a little bit better. But most of them were killed at the end. But they invited the Red Cross once because there were rumors that, oh, I think they're doing something terrible. So Hitler and his gang said, let's show them that we're not doing anything. So they put on a show. They staged an entire camp. 2 or 3 weeks before the camp, they gave everybody a shower, lots of food, lots of clothing, and Red Cross came, and those people put all, they even had, I remember, I wasn't there, but I heard about it, chess sets in the barracks, kids were playing ball, and they said, oh, they had a coffee house also. And they said, what are you talking about? This is a work camp. Look how well they live. And the moment the Red Cross went away, 1 week later, everyone there, so there shouldn't be any witnesses, were taken to Auschwitz and gassed. All of them.
Unbelievable. Did you ever see him?
No, never. No. I was lowly. I mean, he was sitting where in, I don't know even where he was, in Austria, I don't know, in his house. And I didn't even see Mengele because the day either he wasn't there, I didn't recognize him. Besides, I was afraid to look. My mother said, never look up, always look down. That's another thing she taught me. And at the end of it all, when they were taking everybody away to Germany because the Allies were coming, and again, leave no witnesses. So they thought they will take all these people. They were crazy. You couldn't take millions of people walking, but they took a lot. So that's the time when I and my mother, she hid me with a corpse.
Could you tell that story, please? I know it, but for the people watching.
Okay. She found a hospital, a women's hospital. She had planned it. Now, I have not seen her for months. So I hardly recognized her. She looked like she was swollen. She had this starvation, when your body reacts in a certain way. And she said, look, I'm not going to be able to walk on that walk. But she looked at me, she said, you may survive. And I don't want you to survive by yourself in this world. I want you to die with me. Will you die with me? I said, yes. I was very happy to be with her. I don't care, dead or alive. I'd be happy to be with her. So she took my hand and we went to this hospital. And she found a corpse that was still warm, so she could manipulate the body. It was a woman. Well, it was a woman's hospital, so it was a woman. She must have been young, 18, 20, 22, something like younger than my mother. And she put my head there and she manipulated my body and she said, don't move and try not to breathe, because she didn't want the blanket to go. So I breathed into the floor, I remember, with my face like that. And then they came in to check. Could you believe it? People were lined up or so to leave Auschwitz, to go this, they called it the death march. They came to check if any of the people are alive. They were all crazy. And they looked at all the corpses. And if the corpse looked half alive, they'd shoot it. They came to me and I stopped breathing. Just stopped breathing. And the person moved on. I didn't see who it was, of course. And then I smelled smoke and I didn't get uncovered. I thought my mother said not to get uncovered. And then she came over and because they set the house on fire. Look, they tried to have no witnesses of everything, of the atrocities, of the paperwork, of the records. They wanted to destroy everything before they left, but they couldn't. The operation was so gigantic.
Plus, I believe God always leaves a messenger or two behind. Something so heinous, we had to know of it. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Now, you and your mother were able to escape because she hid you under this corpse.
Right, exactly.
Then what happened after that?
Well, then the Russians came. They liberated us, and they were pretty good in the beginning. They gave us food. They had a makeshift hospital, so they took care of people who were very sick. They must have had medicine from the army. The army had medicines, and we didn't know where to go. We didn't know what to do. We didn't even know where we were. We didn't know where Auschwitz was. Now, the Auschwitz from our hometown was about 36 hours on a train, but we didn't know where it was. And so we stayed there just to get our bearings and eat and rest and get our strength. A few months, I think. And then the Russians, I must tell you, became very difficult. There was a lot of drinking and a lot of rape. I didn't know it was rape. All I knew that we were afraid to sleep at night. Because my mother, I remember they were like empty barracks. We could just go and lie down anyway. They gave us blankets in the beginning. Oh, they baked bread. It was the first time I had fresh bread in my life. I mean, they treated us very well, the way they treat their own army, with food, with everything, right? And then I noticed my mother was afraid to sleep. She said, we can't stay here. We got to run. So sometimes at night, we wouldn't even get undressed. We'd lie down on a bunk, like a lower bunk usually.
Yes.
And then middle of the night, she said, we got to go. I said, what's going, where are we going? I thought, here are our friends. And then they were singing a whole night. They were drunk. And then I witnessed a few rapes. I never mentioned it, but I didn't know what it was. So it didn't have an effect on me. All I said was to my mother, why is this woman screaming and this man in uniform who's our friend is hurting her? I didn't know what so she took me away. I was watching. I didn't know what it was. So then one day she said, we got to get out of here. We got to leave.
I have so much admiration for you.
Why? I mean,
because based on everything I've seen of you, you have had such a phenomenal life, considering all this trauma at the early ages where the formation and the foundation is
I want to tell you something.
set.
Very few people had nervous breakdowns in Auschwitz. How can you explain it? Yeah, very few. How come people have nervous breakdowns in peace?
I thought about that.
Yeah.
And what I thought is perhaps people just adapt to their environments. If you're living in a world like you live here, when you have trauma and you look around you and it's only you having it, I think the body has a different response to it. But when you're in a situation like you all were, everyone just adapts, because what other choices do you have?
And that's possibility. That's a good possibility. But I think it's because you are so intent on here and now that you can't think about anything else. You are so intent to be alive. Every hour that you weren't killed is a gift, because you hoped you will see your family again. You see, you lived with this hope that a mother would say, I know she had a teenage children, she'll come back and she'll find them a husband. My mother kept saying, oh, you will see the wonderful family you have. You have so many cousins, and you will be so surprised. And of course, nobody came back. There's this hope of, I have to stay alive now, the second. So I'm going to eat. I'm going to have a little bit of water. You know, it is the adrenaline and everything is a self-preservation.
Exactly. Now, you and your mother found your father. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, well, we came to Poland, and very tough in Poland. extremely, people were terrible to us. They thought we wanted our property back. We didn't want anything. We didn't have what to eat in Poland. After a while, the Jewish communities organized so we could have food. But when we first arrived, there was nothing. And then there were these young teenagers who were traveling all over Europe. See, again, a teenager is a different kind of a person of 17, 18, not like a kids right now. It makes me sick looking at kids of 18. They act as if their parents have to take care of them, you know? So these teenagers were looking for their families. They know they were taken somewhere. They don't know where the families are. So they went from town to town looking for people, and they took names down to see who survived. And one of those names, my father, some teenager or some young man, they were mostly men, went to his Dachau, and he saw the list of our names on it that we survived. And then he made his way to us.
How blessed your family was.
Right, exactly.
Your mother, you, and your father. Were you the only survivors from your entire family?
Well, no, I told you from my mother's side, yes.
Yeah.
I had no siblings because my mother said you don't have children in this kind of a world. And my father had two surviving sisters, three, but one was killed right away. So it's two surviving sisters.
You came to the United States when you were 12 years old.
I thought so, but it was like 11 and a half. I thought it was 12. So that's about 11, but yeah.
And totally reinvented your life. You have you have a master's in psychology, and you have several other degrees. And I look at you and I think.
I have a master's in Blake. Well, first of all, when you come at 11 and a half or 12, I always loved to read. I had to learn how to read. I had to learn the alphabet. I didn't know the American alphabet. And within a year, this happens to a lot of immigrants. I don't know if you noticed, immigrants have a different, around San Francisco, what kind of immigrants do you have?
We have a lot of Asians, like we have Chinese and Mexicans.
And you know how brilliant they are. The Asians they're just geniuses. So they have the highest IQ for SATs, for everything. And they come not knowing anything. And within a short time, there is a refugee mentality, an immigrant mentality, that if you want to be part of a country, you better learn about it. So that's what I did. I learned English to read and after that it was history. I spoke English fluently within 1 year being here. People tell me I still have an accent, but I don't hear it. But I just don't hear it. Where are you from?
Me? Originally, I was born in Guyana in South America, but I have been living in San Francisco for 37 years.
Oh, you don't even look 37 years old.
You're my new best friend. Thank you. I'm a lot older than 37.
Wow, it's great.
Thank you. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, and please understand, none of my questions are meant to be disrespectful. Did you grow up having any type of hostility toward Germans?
I have a lot of hostility with Germans. Terrible.
Right.
First of all, I can't stand the German shepherds, and it's a shame because the little puppy I once adopted, I had to give away when he got older, bigger. The German shepherds were there. They were killers. They were the right arms of the German police. They were right there. Are you familiar with the German shepherds? How they were trained to kill? And for a child, I was their height. They were absolutely scary, terrible. I watched them kill people. They can tear people apart just with one word, from their masters. So Germans, I have trouble hearing to the German language. Yeah, I've never been to Germany.
Yeah, I could imagine how, because somewhere in the deepest parts of your memory, you have
Absolutely.
so many terrible memories
But
associated
there
with
are
them.
people who don't feel like that. I know a lot of people who went back to Germany. I can't. But other people feel it's a different generation, and the Germans, more than the Poles, have shown that how sorry they were. The young Germans are learning about the Holocaust in school. They come to Israel. They come a lot to Israel. By the way, when you get a chance, you should go to Israel. It's a fabulous,
It's on
fabulous
my bucket
country.
list.
So that's my feeling. That's not a general feeling of Holocaust survivors. I would
Right.
never buy a German car, which I know many Holocaust survivors do, or any German product, anything. But that's me.
Right.
So
And that's understandable considering everything you've gone through. And my next question is, you mentioned that they tattooed, you didn't have a name anymore and a number was tattooed on you. Is it still on your body?
absolutely, I would never take it out. That's my witness. I don't want people to say it never happened.
You kept
I don't know if you
it.
can see it. Can you
Oh
see?
my God. Yes, when you raise your arm up, I don't see it now. Yes. Wow.
Yeah. There are not too many of us left with
I
tattoos. My whole family had tattoos. My aunts, my uncles, my parents, my mother, my father. We were a tattooed family.
Wow. I could speak to you for hours. I watched your videos with such fascination and awe. And I think of, we have a little trauma in our lives and we think the world is ending. And I
I
think,
know. That's my problem. I want to talk about 2 minutes. The American parents don't prepare their children for life. They lie to them constantly. They lie to them. When a little kid is 4 years old or 5, and he makes a circle on a piece of paper, the parents say, fabulous, wonderful. What's so wonderful and fabulous about making a circle? He's 5 years old. He should be able to
yes.
make a circle. They give him false information. I'm telling you, and they're not doing them any good. That's my feeling. You've got to prepare a child to live in reality so they can function. Do you know what so
Of
they can be
course.
strong and they can
Yes.
make a life for themselves.
Mhm.
There is a whole books about the American pampered child.
And so you became a psychologist.
No,
How
I am
is
not
it?
a psychologist. I have a social work degree.
Social work.
Yes, but from that I took a lot of courses at MSW, that's MCSW. It's clinical psychologist.
Right.
So I do clinical work.
Do you feel that the experience that you've had in your life had something to do with this choice?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I had this feeling I got to do something.
Yes.
I can help somebody else. That one of my clients once said a few years ago, she said to me, she read about me in the paper. She said, I know why you survived. I said, why? She said, so you can help me. I mean, she said that. And yeah, I feel that my survival has to have a meaning. I got a gift and I can't just not use it. You just can't not use it. It's like a person who has a gift for music. They can't just forget about it. They have to play music. They have to bring music to the world because they have that gift. So I don't have a gift, but I survived. I got to do something with it.
And considering all the trauma you experienced at those formative days, when a person's foundation is being set for the person they're going to become, you have become a phenomenal person. And so my question is, what do you want to say to the world, especially in light of what is now happening in the Ukraine? This must in some ways hit quite close to home for you. What would you like to say to anybody who is escaping the Ukraine, or anyone at all who is dealing with any kind of
Just in
trauma?
general, that the world is made up of people, and you can contribute to what kind of world you want in some way. I mean, if you can, anything that you can do, so when you leave this world, it's a little bit better than you left it. And I don't know what style. I know somebody, all he does, he works in a soup kitchen. He retired, and that's what he does. He's a teacher. He does fabulous soup kitchen work. Another person I know delivers Wheels on Meals for people, and he comes into the house and he talks to the elderly who are alone the whole day. He spends a half hour just while he gives them the food. He doesn't have to do that. He can go to the next, just look around and see, wow, how can I leave my mark for the better? Could be any way, could be tutoring a kid next door who's just not able to learn to read or something. We are all needy in some way. During the epidemic, where we couldn't go out of COVID, we couldn't go out to shop. So I didn't order food. Somehow I never got myself together to do it. I wasn't sure what I wanted to order. So there was a man from my temple, a young man whom I never met before. And he called me up. He said, are you getting food? I said, well, I'm thinking what to do. He said, you know what? Give me a list. I go twice a week. I will bring you food twice a week. Anything you want. Any store you want me to go, I'll go for you. And I didn't even want to meet him because everybody, was the beginning. We were so worried. So he left the food outside, and I gave him a check in my mailbox. He did it for months. I don't know his name. I mean, now I know his name, but so what I'm saying is there is a thing that you can do, really, 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 because we are all needy, every one of us, for something.
Whenever I'm speaking to a strong, powerful, inspiring woman like you, the time always flies. We have been talking now for 1 hour, but before I go, I want to make sure that there wasn't anything I didn't ask you that you feel is important that people should know.
Oh, it's so hard to know, because after we finish, I'll remember.
We'll do another segment.
I didn't say that, but I think they got the idea. The idea of don't let life pass you by sitting and watching television.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I don't want to say anything against you. I mean, programs like yours are okay, right? But I know people who that's all they do. Like, I don't want to be a judge person, but
right.
But if you watch 2 hours a night, then spend 15 minutes doing something that you're proud of. You have to be proud of yourself. And you can't be proud if you don't do something that makes you feel good about it. Just feel good about it. That's all.
Thank you so much for taking the time. This means so much to me. I tried from October last year until now to get this time with you, and I'm someone who does not, yes, I'm someone who does not give up. And so I'm grateful that we've done it. And I want my viewers to know that you are still writing books, and there's a book coming out in September. So stay tuned. I'm going to bring Tova back. It's going to be
called, let's see, the name is going to be Daughter of Auschwitz.
Daughter of Auschwitz.
That's the publisher's choice.
Wow.
Daughter of Auschwitz.
Please stay tuned, because once her book is published, she'll be coming back on my show to tell us a little bit about the book and the details on where you could get it, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tova, and thank you to all my viewers who've watched this segment. I am sure it's had an impact on you. It
You are
did.
very easy to talk to.
I am so grateful. Thank
Thank
you. And I thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. When a conversation is all you need to be inspired, like this fabulous, fantastic woman that I have just been speaking to.
Wait a- After conversation comes action.
Okay.
That's
So
a good thing.
the action is to get that book and read it. And
Okay.
I will see you next time with another fascinating person. Thank you.